To give you a little bit brief about our training program, we have what we call the decision science. It consists of decision making under risk, decision making with multiple criteria, decision making and allocation and of resources. Di selain itu juga kita ada business intelligence. Seperti saya sudah janjikan, kita akan ada dua bahasa. Kita juga ada business intelligence collecting and analyzing survey, business intelligence collecting and analyzing uh, qualitative, sorry, and business intelligence analyst. This is the great one. We have this BNSP. Jadi kita kerjasama sama BNSP. Buat teman-teman yang tertarik untuk belajar tentang apa sih business intelligence itu, ini juga termasuk dengan sertifikasi BNSP yang sudah diakui nasional. So it's already include with BNSP that acknowledged by our local government. And then we also have data analyst, which also have this BNSP certification. And then next we have, this is our corporate training program, our range of training programs starting from leadership. And even we can customize in-house training based on what the company need. And micro credential. This is one of our pinnacle program. Jadi program ini adalah salah satu program unggulan kita, project management, buat teman-teman atau rekan-rekan yang mau belajar project management. Kita ada compulsory, maksudnya ada comprehensive program project management dari mulai metodologi sampai closing itu seperti apa project management. Dan salah satu program unggulan lainnya adalah environmental science. Program ini fleksibel online, kalian bisa ikuti secara online, bisa belajar atur waktunya sendiri, dan gain international e-badge from CQ University Australia. Kemudian selain dari itu kami juga ada program-program pendek. Program pendek ini durasinya kurang lebih 3 jam, about 3 hours. We have project management best practice, and a workshop project management. This will be shared later on via email in term of our schedule, and feel free to contact us for further information. Aside from that, kita juga karena kita salah satu bagian dari CQ University di Australia sana, kita ada salah satu program yang menarik. So we have this what we call MBA International. This is where we collaborate with one of local university, one of prestige local university. We call it the two world class MBA degree. It's only one half, 1,5 tahun aja. Jadi kita ada gelar MBA. Itu kerjasama between CQ University, MBA program with University Bakri atau Universitas Bakri untuk MM-nya. Benefitnya, study while you work, affordable price with international value, global recognition, dan yang paling penting, ini paling menarik adalah nggak cuma networking, but also the tuition fee. Tuition fee-nya is compared to other, it's quite low. It's quite competitive. And the quality is really good. And aside from that, we also part of the LPDP Australian Award for 2026. We are happy to be appointed to promote this 3 program, Master of Engineering with Electrical, Major, sorry. One moment, I have a technical difficulties. My screen. I'll continue. So we have Master of Engineering with an electrical, and then Master of Research with the Center of Hydrogen and Renewable Energy, or CHRE. Master of Research with the Coastal Marine Ecosystem Research Center, or CMERC. Ini sedikit gambaran tentang kami, kegiatan-kegiatan kami, kelas kami yang kita punyai, kemudian sedikit gambaran partner-partner kami atau what we've been working with. And that's it. So for further information, feel free to contact us or visit our office in Jakarta. Bisa sambil ngopi-ngopi di depan atau mungkin sambil belanja-belanja. So we can do shopping, we can do coffee, we can do everything in this area, and feel free to visit our office. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Pak Reza, for the presentation about the CQ training. So the next session, we will have presentation from our first keynote, and then this one will be assist also, or our president director will help for as a moderator as well to Papier. So the first keynote will be presented by Mr. Paul Hodson. So to Mr. Paul Hodson and also Papier, the spotlight is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining the webinar tonight, and for my colleagues in Indonesia. Thank you very much for organizing such a wonderful event. I'm really looking forward to hearing from the other presenters, and also from the questions from the audience. Very honored to be here. I'll share my slides now. Let's see if you can. Just checking that you can see those slides. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. So yes, as been said, I'm Paul Hodgson from CQ University's Centre for Hydrogen and Renewable Energy. I'm coming to you from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia this evening. So salamat malam to you all. And as we do with all our presentations, we're going to acknowledge the country, acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land that I'm on, which is the Turrbal Jagera people, and pay respect to the elders of all First Nations peoples of Australia and Indonesia. And I think it's important, Pak Pierre talked about the neighbors that we are with Indonesia. And the first Australians traveled across Indonesia and Southeast Asia to make Australia their home as long as 65,000 years ago. And pre-colonization of Australia, the Makassans of Indonesia were regular traders with the Yolngu people in East Arnhem Land in Northern Territory. So Australia and Indonesia have had a very, very long neighborly relationship. And I think we can learn from a lot of those relationships as we look to the future, and hopefully stronger relationships in the future. Tonight, I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm not going to talk a lot about a range of things, but I think it's really worth talking about the similarities between Australia and Indonesia. You know, when we look at a map, yes, we are very much neighbors in this part of the world. But some of the things we also share, we're relevant to this topic. So we are both top 20 global economies, but we're also top 20 global carbon emitters as well. We do have strong coal, LNG, minerals, agricultural exports from both countries. And specifically, I'll talk about Central Queensland. We're obviously from Central Queensland, and I'll talk a little bit about that and a little bit about what CQ University is doing in renewable energy and in the energy transition more generally. But we both have very large renewable energy potential. And I think that's exciting because it brings economic, social, cultural opportunities, energy security relationships to our energy security to our regions, and hopefully energy independence to a lot of our regions within our two countries as well. We have distributed regions. So Australia's population is concentrated around our metropolitan areas. We have a very large or long national electricity market on the east coast of Australia, but we have a lot of distributed regions off-grid using diesel power to run electricity and often not having. So about 2 million out of Australia's 27, 28 million population, a little under 10%, actually don't have access to electricity grid. And I know that in Indonesia, there's a lot of distributed populations across islands as well. So a lot of things we can learn from each other in terms of microgrids and other distributed energy resources. We both have ambitious goals on emissions and renewable energy, renewable generation, and we have opportunities, which I think is really critical to localize the critical supplies in our region. And that's really important. The current federal government, when they were elected in 2022, I think in the first week, the trade minister, the industry minister, and the prime minister and the foreign minister all traveled to Indonesia in the first week, I think cementing the importance of the relationship, but the breadth of the relationship that we have in an economic sense, but also social and cultural. Just a little bit, Pierre talked about Australian energy. So we do have a target of 82% renewables by 2030, which is a target of 43% emissions by 2030, and looking to be net zero by 2050. I put a number of logos there. There's a number of institutions. I won't go into them now. The most recent is the Net Zero Economic Authority, which is looking at working with the regions to do an energy transition in particularly our coal and gas regions of Australia. But we have a whole range of finance providers and grant providers, policymakers, and others and that's only a small collection of them. There's a number of others that are part of that collection. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen there, our national energy statistics. This is 2023. It takes a little while for them to come out. But you can see in there, most coal and gas produced is exported. So 89% of our black coal is exported, 73% of our gas. We've, in 2023, 35% of our electricity is now from renewables, and that's growing rapidly. I think it's now hit 40% of our electricity, but we are aiming for 82% by 2030. And electricity demand is growing, as you can see as well. And particularly electrification. We're starting to see more battery electric vehicles. We're starting to see more electricity used in industry and electricity for heating and cooling. So in CQ University, Australia, interesting, we've got campuses up across the east coast of Australia. But the red circle demonstrate, I guess, where central Queensland it is, where our head office is, where a lot of our activity is. And it's a very special region. And we would love many of you to come and visit, and as much as we would love to come and visit Indonesia as well. Interestingly as well, Australia's got 43 universities. Only 3 of those universities are in Northern Australia. So north of the Sunshine Coast, just north of Brisbane, and up, there are 3 universities: Central Queensland University, James Cook University based in Townsville, and Charles Darwin University in the Northern Territory. And so we take our regional responsibility and our pride very seriously in terms of the work that we do, where we like to provide education and training to regions. We like to build capacity in regions. We like to try and help solve research challenges and to realize the potential of regions more generally. And that's the approach that we do, and we take globally as well. We love working to maximize the amenity of regions. Regions provide a significant role in the development of both of our countries. So Central Queensland, it's the most energy and emissions intensive region of Australia. The 3 largest coal-fired power stations in Queensland are all in Central Queensland. We export about 75% of Australia's metallurgical coal. We export about 30% of Australia's liquefied natural gas. We have 2 alumina refineries. We have an aluminium smelter. We have chemical manufacturers. We have cement. The largest cement plant in the Southern Hemisphere is in Gladstone. And we have very significant agricultural industry as well, including quite a big cattle industry, but also a lot of horticulture as well, and the sugar industry. And we're in the early stages of a massive energy transition, which is bringing substantial investment by government and industry right through to 2050. You can see that map there. It's not very clear, but that's really a map of Central Queensland. And the yellow and the blue dots, or splodges, if you like, are solar and wind projects. There's about 60 in the region that are in various stages of development, and it could be more than that. And as I mentioned, as a regional university, we take our responsibility really seriously to actually help shape and maximize that investment opportunity for sustained economic and social transformation of our region and other regions as well. Within Central Queensland, Gladstone, it's an industrial powerhouse. Most of those industries that I talked about are in Gladstone. And our campus, you can see a part of our campus in the photo there. That's our School of Manufacturing, is right in the heart of Gladstone, and it's actually on the Gladstone Port's land, which is the largest multi-commodity port in Queensland. And we have co-located centres there for research, education, training, and community on campus. In the School of Manufacturing, we have quite a significant hydrogen training facility. We're currently developing a hydrogen community information centre with the Queensland Government, which will be open next month. And we also have some developing hydrogen labs. We also teach electrical engineering, electrical trades, and other key things for the energy space. Our 4 programs in the Centre for Hydrogen and Renewable Energy are bioenergy and waste valorization. So we look at biofuels and waste feedstocks. We look at plastic to energy and a whole range of things to actually clear up a lot of waste and turn it into a useful commodity again. We have a renewable electrification program. So we look at everything from wind and solar right through to the electricity transmission and distribution, pumped hydro, batteries, microgrids, and sort of everything in between. And we have a renewable hydrogen and derivatives program. Gladstone's often seen there's there's a bit of wobble sometimes in the hydrogen sector because it's still quite an emerging sector, but it's still got the largest concentration in Australia of hydrogen projects. Proposed hydrogen projects are in Gladstone. And we also then have a program looking at community engagement and benefit. So how can we empower communities? How can we enable communities? How can we help them become partners in the development, not just hosts of the development that comes along? So the Centre for Hydrogen and Renewable Energy vision and priorities. So we want to develop, and we are hopefully in the process of developing a world-class research and training centre that not only supports the net zero ambitions of our industry and government partners, but delivers improved and sustainable economic and social amenity for our communities. So that's our vision. And we are looking at that biomass and waste feedstock side of things. We're looking at the resilient supply and utilisation of zero emission electricity. We're looking at the cost-effective and safe production, distribution, and storage of liquid hydrogen and sustainable e-fuels. And we're looking at maximising the community benefit from the development of new energy and minerals projects. CQ University is ranked number 54 in the world in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, which looks at the Sustainable Development Goals. And our Centre for Hydrogen and Renewable Energy has a real focus on Sustainable Development Goal 7, which is obviously affordable and clean energy for all. So that's our key. One of our key metrics is actually how we're going to be developing against that particular and helping deliver on that sustainable development goal globally. Our community, so we've got 54 researchers and research high degree students across 8 CQ University campuses that I mentioned before in the map of Australia. And we've got a whole range of partners and members. I've only got a few of them there. Includes the Hydrogen Flight Alliance, who is a group of 16 organizations looking at enabling battery hydrogen electric flight on regional routes in Australia. We've got Orica, that's a major chemical manufacturer and ammonia producer. We've got some university partners. We've got Stanwell, who's probably, I think, the largest actually coal-fired power generator in Queensland in the national electricity market, and I think one of the largest purchasers of power through power purchase agreements. Queensland Magnesia produces magnesia products out of central Queensland for the world. Magnesia goes into a whole range of different commodities, and then we've got a whole range of collaborations. We're part of like the Queensland Renewable Energy Council, the Solving Plastic Waste Cooperative Research Centre, a new bid at the moment for an agri-solar cooperative research centre. We're part of the Developing Northern Australia Cooperative Research Centre, and also the Regional Universities Network as well. And that's just a combination. We are a natural collaborator. We go forward with humility. We want to be part of the solution. We know we can't be all of the solution. We really want to work with the best people to have the best impact. Just a range of some of our research projects that we're doing at the centre. So at the moment, with the Queensland Government and the Australian Government, we're designing a green mobile energy hub to enhance electricity network resilience during natural disasters. Australia, and particularly Queensland, is prone to floods, fires, droughts, and cyclones. And often the electricity distribution organisation will send diesel generators in on a truck into a disaster site, natural disaster site. We're looking at how we might be able to design up a green mobile energy hub, which would include solar batteries and probably green hydrogen with fuel cells storage. We're looking at working with the Gladstone Ports Corporation on a green shore power study to look at actually how they can help their maritime customers, their shipping customers, to reduce their emissions by plugging into renewable energy once they're in Gladstone. We're doing a remote microgrid feasibility study with Queensland Government funding for the Woorabinda Indigenous community in central Queensland. And you can see a whole range of things that we're doing across the centre. Achieving social license is really important, and particularly for the hydrogen industry, which is a new industry. We are mentioned we're developing a community information centre. We're doing that with the Queensland Government, the Australian Government, Gladstone Regional Council, and Rio Tinto, and a range of other participants that are providing equipment and providing in-kind support and digital assets. And it will be really for schools, everyone from school kids to community members, to international delegations, domestic delegations, and other visitors, to actually be a landing pad, if you like, or a meeting place where people can meet, they can engage, they can learn, they can discuss, and they can advance knowledge and disseminate knowledge across the industry and community. We are a dual sector university, so there's only 6 in Australia and 1 in Queensland. That means that we train people from Certificate 1 in the Australian qualifications framework, all the way up from point 1 all the way up to point 10. So we're delivering a range of hydrogen fundamentals training, which is a 4-hour in-person delivery at the moment around Australia and into New Zealand. And we're also developing up with industry some competencies for people in hydrogen, and we are also doing that in ammonia now as well, because ammonia is growing as a considerable opportunity as a derivative of hydrogen that will be traded. So we might see more high ammonia use around central Queensland and production. And we're doing with schools, we do a lot of engagement. So with industry sponsorship and with schools, we're doing the Central Queensland Hydrogen Grand Prix, which is a great way for school children to get involved with hydrogen and to understand how it works. And they race cars, and it's a very exciting event. We do that in May. It's part of a global competition, but we're really and we've got a whole range of science, technology, and engineering maths programs that we run with schools across central Queensland as well through our STEM Central, which sits next to our Hydrogen Community Information Centre in Gladstone. On the right of the screen, we also worked with the Queensland Government with Axiana Energy and Stamwell to develop up a micro-credentialing program, and about 450 secondary school students did that online to develop up their understanding of the hydrogen sector and the hydrogen opportunities. And hopefully that helps us and helps industry and helps the region build a sustainable, highly skilled workforce with the economic and social benefits that come with that. So really almost out of time, and really interested in the question and answers that we're going to have and the discussion we're going to have over the course of the evening, and the other ideas and insights and inspirations we're going to hear from the other presenters. But let's work and learn together. There's a whole range of things. These are just a few ideas of things that we can do. I always think you think big and then you act small. So we start with small things to work together. We build up the trust, we build up the shared value that we can do and the knowledge. We build up the relationships. We enjoy each other's company, and we see where that opportunity goes. But I think we've got a fantastic opportunity across Australia and Indonesia, and CQ University would love to be part of strengthening that relationship, particularly in this exciting opportunity to add social and economic and cultural value through the development of more renewable energy resources. So thank you, and terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was a very interesting presentation, and great to see all the education and other opportunities that may exist for us for collaboration between Central Queensland, which is emerging as a renewable energies region, and how that can link with the work that may be happening in Indonesia as well. I just see on my feed here that there's a question that's come in, Paul, and that is what other support are provided by Queensland government aside from funding? That comes from one of our participants. Could you maybe comment on that?
Yes, great question. So the Queensland government has provided, the previous Queensland government, we've had a change in government since the end of October, but there's been a lot of support provided in developing up training facilities, for example, to be providing training support that's happening as well for communities, along with there was a jobs portal for clean energy jobs to make it easier for people to find jobs in renewable energy, and a whole range of infrastructure provision as well. It's really important, I think, to have the various levels of government working together. I think it actually helps community understand that what the direction looks like, and also for investors and others to have some certainty as well. So there's been a lot of support across government, and the targets, despite the changes in government, are actually still the targets as well, around net zero by 2050 as well. So that's there's quite a bit of stability around that. There's always in something which is a messy energy transition, which isn't always a clear path. You're always going to have differences of opinion, but otherwise, there's a lot of support from government, and consistent support from government in supporting communities to do to navigate through this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm conscious of our time. It's around 5:39. We've got another 5 minutes left. I don't see another question, but Paul, I want to ask you, I am aware that through your work in Australia, you've also recently submitted an application with the Australian Awards, and that's something that you don't have the outcome on yet. I know that that's still in the future, maybe to hear the outcome on that. But I think that also focuses on this whole green energy area. And that would actually involve 25 people, if we are successful with that grant application, to go to Central Queensland and to learn about all these opportunities. Am I correct? And do you want to just maybe say something about that to the audience as well?
Yes, absolutely. We're really keen. We have our fingers crossed. I'm not sure if fingers crossed works in Indonesia, but certainly we are really hoping that we'll be able to do that. Which is if we win that we'll be able to work to help provide those cross-cultural experiences in energy transition, and to bring in some of those entities that I talked about to provide their learnings and their insights around the energy transition from some of our big infrastructure providers and our big energy producers and some of our big energy consumers, to also some of the government entities at the local level, the state level, at the national level, about passing on some of those learnings, and learning as well from our Indonesian guests and participants. But yeah, it's in the energy transition space. And given Central Queensland's position in that energy and emissions hotspot, with tremendous investment coming in renewable energy and hydrogen, we think we've got a few things that we might be able to provide that might be helpful for the participants in that program. So we're looking forward to the opportunity.
Fantastic, Paul. We'll keep on holding our thumbs for that. I do note that there's a couple of questions coming in now. And the one is specific, but it's a question specifically from Timothy. But this is to everyone, not necessarily only to you, Paul, but we'll take it. We've got about 3 minutes left before we have to move to our next speaker. But anyone that wants to answer from our panel on this one, please do it. Timothy asks, how does the Albanese administration ensure policy sustainability in the field of energy transition in facing a likely change in government in May? I don't think, Paul, maybe you'd be best positioned if you've got an answer on that one.
Yeah, so look, in any democracy, you have prospective changes of government. I mean, that's the definition of a democracy. So there's been a lot of work that's happening. As I said, there are sometimes differences of opinion about how things might happen, but what I'm finding in Australia is that a lot of the drive now is not actually driven by government. It's actually driven by a lot of our global industries and private sector partners, our trading partners. And Australia exports about 65 to 70% of all the energy it produces. And so we actually have a regional responsibility across our trading partners and our neighbours to actually help the region and the world decarbonize. And so if I take the example of Rio Tinto, so Rio Tinto has some of its major aluminium assets are in central Queensland, and 2 refineries and a smelter, and they have very ambitious 50% emissions reduction targets globally by 2030, and about 40 to 50% of their global emissions across all their businesses are on the east coast of Australia. So regardless, I guess, of the change of government, these companies have responsibilities to their investors, to their owners, to their customers, and to their employees to actually be staying the course. So yes, government has a significant role to play and certainly does help, but there isn't. But it's not just all about government. It's actually got a multi-stakeholder push now towards more renewable energy and meeting net zero.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think we've ended up at the 5:45, and I'll hand back to the team there, Pakreza, you and Bella, and you can take forward. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Bapak. Thank you very much, Pak Paul and Pak Pierre, for the explanation. It's good to hear that the government is supporting the activity, and plus there's a lot of engagement with the local schools and even like with the local with other stakeholders. So the next presentation will be delivered. Presentasi berikutnya akan disampaikan oleh Bapak Dr. Insinyur Yahya Rahmana. Dari beliau adalah salah satu direktur dari Bappenas. Presentasinya Pak Yahya mungkin bisa bilingual nanti dalam bahasa Indonesia, bahasa Inggris. Dan saya juga ingin mengingatkan buat teman-teman, kalau nanti ada pertanyaan, misalkan dalam bahasa Indonesia karena nggak familiar dengan bahasa Inggris, kamu silakan di type atau diketik di Q&A column. Nanti saya akan coba bacakan atau sampaikan untuk ke para panelis. So if you do have question for all the panelists, feel free to type it in the Q&A box and we'll try to convey to the panelists. So Pak Yahya, waktu dan tempat saya persilahkan.
Thank you so much, Pak Reza. That my voice is clear, right? Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Reza. First of all, I would like to appreciation to the Central Queensland University, especially Honorable Professor Pierce, the President Director of CQU. Also, thank you so much for my colleagues, Paul Hodgson, Director for the Hydrogen and Renewable Center, CQU, and then also my colleagues, Pak Kevin Evans, Australia Indonesia Center. Good afternoon, going on the evening, and also my colleagues from Institut Teknologi Kalimantan, Ibu Happy. So that's my opportunity to inform about the Indonesian program. That's why my title in the presentation is the strategy of Indonesia's energy transition toward net zero emission. So, you know that related with the speech of Paul Hudson, the energy transition is important for all countries because energy transition toward net zero emission is a commitment, and the Indonesian government already committed in Paris Agreement. So there is a law to support this commitment. You know that 2030, 43% reducing greenhouse gases, and also 2060, you know, we are becoming net zero emission. Yeah, so that's why we are having what we call that the long-term development plan. Yeah, 2025 until 2045. So this is based on law, yeah, based on law already determined, law number 59, 2024. And then in the end, 2045, the share of renewable energy will be 60% of the total mixed primary energy. So in terms of the energy transition toward to the net zero emission, the our challenging of energy trilemma. The first one is energy security, state capacity to fulfill energy demand now and the future, securely and resilient, as well as rebounding from energy emergency and crisis. And the second, energy equity, capability to supply universal access of affordability and abundant energy for domestic consumption and the commercial. So it's been energy equity is accessibility and affordability. And the third is sustainability. Sustainability energy system representing energy transition toward mitigation and avoid environmental disaster and climate change effect. So this energy trilemma in Indonesia. Energy sector as the main contributor to greenhouse emission, and energy 59%, and then forest on other land use 18%, waste 11%, agriculture 7%, and then industrial processes and product use IPPU 5%. So you know that Indonesia will focusing heavily on energy to reduce greenhouse emission in this case. In terms of the implementation, you know that we are facing two main challenging in energy transition. The first one is increasing dependency on coal and sluggish investment on renewable energy. Like in our chart in here, 2018 until 2023, the consumption of coal remain increasing. And then the investment of renewable energy in Indonesia, you know, that is stagnant, not increasing rapidly. So that's why how Indonesia could overcome this challenging. Yeah. Okay, we can see that the realization of energy sector, realization of investment on energy sectors. If we look at this table, 2024, the realization of investment dominantly oil and gas project, and then mineral and mining project. And then renewable energy is the lowest rather than the other energy project. Yeah. So this means that it is that's our challenge to acceleration our program in energy transition. So beside that, that there's still plan development of the coal-fired power plant in Indonesia until 2030. That and then the total installed capacity 2024 40.6 gigawatt. This is 43% of the total installed capacity in Indonesia. And then still, continuing for planning additional capacity of coal power plant until 2030. The total is 18.8 gigawatt. So it's mean that we are, that there's still commitment in our what we call that the electricity planning committed with the PT PLN, National Electricity Company. Beside that, there will be additional coal power plant capacity. It's mean that the captive power in our planning to support mineral and mining helirization, smelter industry for nickel, bauxite, and also nickel, bauxite, and other base metal. That the copper, bauxite, and nickel. So still, that because in order to support our economic growth, and then the current president stated that 2029 the economic growth should be 8% per annum. Yeah. Yeah, we look at the electricity consumption per capita in countries. That Indonesia still the lowest electricity consumption. Yeah, 1.1. This is the data of 2022. Yeah, Indonesia 1.1 megawatt hours per capita. Compared to the Australia, 10.3 megawatt hour per capita. So almost that 10% electricity consumption per capita in Indonesia compared to the Australia. It's mean that we are also planning to increase the electricity consumption per capita in order to replace some energy primary coming from fossil like oil and gas and also coal. Okay. Right now, also Indonesia is facing a dilemma from the mineral and mining helirization. The dilemma between economic growth versus reducing green gas houses. Yeah. For example, like you know that the product domestic brutto base metal sector, you know that the two time increasing from 2013 until 2023. Yeah. That the two time increasing the product domestic brutto from the base metal sector. And then if we look at the emission from green gas houses nickel industry, yeah, 2013 until 2023, there is 8 times increasing, yeah, 8 times increasing because of the smelter of the nickel, just on the nickel. It not including bauxite and also other base metals. Yeah. Ah, there also we are having a dichotomy between east and west. You know that because the location of the strategic mineral reserve located in eastern region, yeah, and then the huge resource of renewable energy located in the west region. So you know that there is distribution spatial between mineral resources and renewable energy resources coming up with challenging in support heavy energy industry with low carbon energy sources. So this is, you know, that our challenging, yeah, in terms to acceleration of energy transition. So that's why we, you know, are decoupling between increasing of energy demand with the increasing of emission in the next 5 years. You know, like in this chart, yeah, Indonesia must prioritizing economic growth, but simultaneously to find the strategy of energy transition, the right thing in order to reduce the emission and from an economy expansion. So that's the our you know that challenge. So if we look at the impact, you know that the impact of energy transition, decarbonization happen on the three main level. The first one is the asset level, and then the company level, and also the country level. The asset level, the way decarbonization asset, how to decarbonize our asset, and then repowering strategy to find the right technology to change from the fossil energy to the renewable energy. And the company level, green growth, decarbonization as opportunity to value creation. Also, holistic approach to determine the changing systemic in our organization, and also funding to choose funding for the new technology. The country level, it is the system implication, how to determine the impact of to stop the fossil energy in our national energy system. Also, we also would like in the country level that the justice of the energy transition to determine energy transition is fair to our community and our economy. Okay, that's why in long-term development plan 2025-2045, there are three programs in energy transition. The first one is the how to optimizing energy demand through the energy efficiency and sustainable transportation, or we call that the green transportation. The second is developing clean energy system. We are using the green super grid, like smart grid, and then also we are utilize natural gas because our country has abundance of the natural gas that the energy fossil uh, 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 less, less producing green greenhouses, the clean fossil energy. So that's why and in our policy is natural gas will be bridging toward to the renewable energy. Yeah, that. And then we are also having so many potential resources of geothermal. Geothermal, because that the capacity installed on the geothermal power plant still that 8% of the total potential geothermal reserves. So still that we have opportunity to develop the geothermal power plant. And also hydropower. Yeah, that the hydropower also we need to develop hydropower in order to support our baseload electricity. And also bioenergy. Bioenergy, that in Indonesia, there has been until right now we call that the mandatory policy to use the biofuel, yeah, from B30 and then becoming to B40. That the biofuel mixing between CPO and the oil, that like for the solar fuel. And then also we will develop what we call that variable energy, renewable energy. And that since 2035, we will introduce nuclear power plant. Yeah, because that the nuclear power plant having tiny emission produce. So that's why Indonesia right now is ready to coming nuclear technology, especially in a nuclear power plant. So beside nuclear power plant, we also in terms of the research, utilization of the green hydrogen. Maybe the Australia already, that advanced in green hydrogen. Yeah, because the government of Australia is very support to use of the new hydrogen. So Indonesia also having huge potential of renewable energy to producing green hydrogen. Yeah. Beside green hydrogen, you know that we will, you know, that establish the solar panel production. Yeah, you know, so we don't want to depend on the import solar panel. Yeah, because in our models of the energy projection until 2060 will be dominated by solar power plant. You know, beside you know the development of clean energy system, so we also how to handle the emission using carbon capture storage or carbon capture utilization storage. Yeah. So carbon capture storage, we are having huge, you know, having huge potential to potential of the storage coming from uh, uh, what we call that the depleted reservoir. Yeah, depleted reservoir could be the storage of the CO2, and then the second one is the saline aquifer, yeah, and huge located in spread out of Indonesia. So the total potential for the CCS and CCUS about 600 gigaton can you know to store CO2, yeah, 5 gigaton from the depleted reservoir and the rest almost 595 gigaton coming from saline aquifer. But you know, we are right now starting, yeah, to implement how to reduce the emission using carbon capture storage. Okay, and then you know that the how to develop the energy in the future. So there are three main of policies. The first one is the optimization of energy demand, energy efficiency in the industry sector, commercial, housing, and the transportation. The second one is to develop clean energy, developing a green supergrid, developing, you know, natural gas exploration and production, and then increasing renewable energy, especially renewable energy for baseload like hydropower and geothermal power plant. And then, you know, that we are ready preparing, yeah, preparing solar panel industry in domestic, and then also to develop new energy like green hydrogen and nuclear. The third policies is how to reduce emission from energy sector with the true implementation of the carbon capture storage and carbon capture utilization storage on electricity sector and industry. Okay, this is a step in energy transition in our long-term development plan 2025 until 2045. Consists of the four step. Yeah, the first step 2025 2029. For example, like we will introducing the implementation of carbon capture storage. And you know, to to stop, the increasing of coal. Not stop. It's mean that slowly to develop the coal fired power plant. Second one is, we will start to utilize the energy storage system, developing renewable energy, focusing on the hydropower plant, solar power plant, geothermal power plant, wind power plant, and biomass power plant, or co-firing coal-fired power plant. And then also we are introducing carbon credit in these years, yeah. And then also how to transfer from the fossil subsidy to the renewable energy subsidy as gradually, and also increasing the utilization of natural gas in industry sector, and then also that increasing the utilization of EV, electric vehicle, and also housing electric equipment and supporting infrastructures, and also developing grid electricity grid through the interconnection between Sumatra Island, Java Island, and Kalimantan Island, and also starting the utilization of the smart grid in order to accept renewable energy power plant. And also, in the first step, yeah, to expand the mandatory biofuel from the biomass, especially from the CPO, blending with the solar fuel. That's the example of the first step, and then we will introducing the second step. That the utilizing nuclear power plant as the first commercial. Maybe 4 gigawatt, introducing nuclear power plant in the second step, 2030 until 2040. And this is example of our stages of the long-term development plan. Okay, and then maybe
Apologize,
that's
Pak Yahya.
finished. Yeah, finish my
Your time is up.
presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Yahya, for the presentation. Fortunately, due to time constraint, we
Yeah.
continue to the next presenter. Question for you already being recorded in our Q&A box. Jadi sudah ada pertanyaannya Pak di Q&A box. Tapi kita nanti bacakan di sesi terakhir ya Pak. So now we can continue with Bapak Kevin Evans. Pak Kevin, the times is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Reza. Dear friends, Pak Pierre, Pak Paul, Pak Yahya, and Ibu Happy, thank you most kindly for the chance to chat with you today. Let me see if I can put up my presentation. There we go. Hopefully this will work. It's an absolute delight to be with you here today, partly as a Queenslander, but long-term resident in Indonesia. So it's always wonderful to be able to engage, and particularly also actually as someone who grew up around central Queensland. So a double value added for me. So with the Australia-Indonesia Centre, for those who aren't familiar with us, we're a consortium of key research universities from both centres, both countries, set up about 10 years ago, but we've partnered with many other universities over these years. And one of the areas that we looked at quite intensively in our first few years was actually the area of energy, and with a bit of a focus on aspects relating to what we would now call energy transition, but issues of new and renewable energy. Okay. So looking back, so my engagement with Indonesia goes back, way back. So I started working on issues related to Indonesia from the Australian government side at the end of the 80s. And something very interesting caught my attention very early on, which was a sudden increase in exports of oil to Indonesia from Australia. And that sort of gave me an awareness that there was a two-way flow of energy beginning, as it were, with oil. Different grades, I guess, for meeting the needs of both economies, but a very important source of trade with us at that time. We'd always imported from Indonesia, but this sort of grew the other way. And then at the end of the 80s, in the wake of financial and trade and investment deregulation in Indonesia, lots of important investments started to flow from Australia to Indonesia at that stage, many in the mining sector. So in fact, I think by the mid-90s, Australia was probably the leading investor in Indonesia in the mining sector. A number of our major corporations had established big mining operations in particular, many in Kalimantan, but elsewhere as well. So more recently, in fact, the investment flows have been going the other way. So major Indonesian corporations have been making significant investments, and I believe also one major investment in Queensland, in the area of it's in the traditional energy fields of coal, but nonetheless very important investments coming from Indonesia to Australia. In fact, I believe there's more investment flowing into Australia than into Indonesia between the two countries. So major historic developments and demonstrating long-term partnerships that have existed on the commercial side in the energy space. I want to touch a little bit on prospects in the new and renewable space, but I'll come to that a little later. So in addition to that, again, some of my early life when I was working in the embassy, working with exchanges between senior officials from our Mines and Energy Ministry with Indonesia's Mines and Energy Ministry, a natural and important set of exchanges were put in place at that time, and really have continued through a number of guises and a number of transformations over the decades. In fact, most recently, last year from memory, a new relationship or a new MOU between Indonesia and Australia on strengthening energy cooperation in climate change challenges. This reflects a number of important developments and thinking between both countries on where we can do more together to meet up and step up to the climate change challenges, significant elements of which relate to an energy transition. Just before we saw one of the really interesting charts from we're noting the greenhouse gas emissions or the emissions coming from various sectors of the economy. 10 years ago, when I was working in President Budiono's office, actually the big concern was more on the forestry sector as the major source of energy, land use change was the major source of emissions in Indonesia. So if what we're seeing there now on the energy side, that's a significant historic transformation, and definitely is something that should catch the attention of anybody interested in accelerating the energy transition into the future. So we look firstly at the business side. They've been working together for many, many years. Also on the government side, at a number of levels, it's gone right through to today. And also even on the civil society side, there have also been what I might call a second track process between the Centre for Policy Studies, recent collaboration with Climate Works, which is a research centre based in Monash University in Melbourne, undertaking issues looking at energy transition policy dialogue. So again, looking at where this impacts on community, where think tanks and so forth and activist groups might want to be involved in helping to force the pace, I assume, with respect to both countries. We all face some interesting challenges, and I'll get to that in a sec. So we see that there are elements of exchange between our countries, long term, from the business side, from the government side, and now even from community and research and public advocacy groups. One thing, when we began from the Australia and Indonesia Centre to work closely with partners here about 10 years ago, between our universities, but also with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, something that popped up very early that really shone a light for me was just how similar the energy dynamics are between the two countries. I mean, everyone says everyone needs an energy transition, so that's common. But beyond that, there are actually some very interesting dynamics that I think could offer really interesting prospects, both for research, but also engagement at a number of levels. So very interesting that we see, community groups also engaging in exchanges, because the difficulties of moving the needle towards, what you might call sustainable transformation, that's not unfamiliar to Australians, as it's certainly not unfamiliar with Indonesians. So the first issue is we are both huge big fossil energy exporters. We're actually we're both all importers, but we make up for that through coal, where we're first and second, depending on who's leading on the day, and also very significant exporters of gas. So I think Indonesia will transform in the next few years to being a net importer of gas. Both, as I think was noted also by Yahoo, were both very heavily aligned with coal-fired power plants. And clearly, in Indonesia's case, that's not going to change anytime in the near future. Australia is working at that. Again, one of the dynamics is recent investments, I mean, within the last 10, 15, 20 years, investments in these plants, and you can't just close them down. That's stranded assets and lots of losses. So how you transfer out has significant commercial, as well as more generally cost implications. And among the reasons why it's a little more complicated is we've both also historically over-projected what we assume to be increase in demand for electricity. So in the case of Indonesia, maybe 10 years ago, thinking was economic growth at 7%, well, it was really 5%. And I'm not yet seeing evidence to suggest an unleashing of significant pent-up demand, which will immediately move us towards more ambitious goals towards 8%. But projections on growth in energy were founded upon assumptions of that. So whether you're an independent power producer, whether you're the state electricity authority or so forth, your assumptions were growth would be at this, growth in demand for electricity this, but in fact it's been this. And that's setting aside the whole COVID shakedown, which actually in itself led to the surprising thing here with surplus electricity in the Java Bali grid, which is frankly quite historic for Indonesia, for there to be for such a situation to emerge. And so that lower than expected growth, in the case of Australia, I think one of the real contributions was the explosion in demand for rooftop solar panels at the household level, which was instituted in the global financial crisis as a means of trying to stimulate new economic activity. And so that was that reduced, I guess, the amount of on-grid expected demand increases for electricity from the Australian perspective. But the dynamic was similar. We expected growth at this. We've actually only got growth at this. And therefore, there are a lot of investments and a lot of other activities that have undertaken on the assumption of being more this rather than this. And so part of what comes out of that is that every time you want to add a new and renewable power plant, it's not like you're in a growing situation. Basically, every time you grow, you put in a solar plant or a wind power plant or something like that to sell onto the grid, you're basically taking from coal. And so that's a lot more difficult to work through commercially and politically. And so we've both confronted a somewhat similar dynamic in there. And so it's really interesting to me to consider how both societies, how we can learn from each other, I think, in how to deal with that particular important challenge as we both look to reducing our dependence on fossil-related energy. And it was very interesting that he also referred to natural gas as a bridging source of fossil fuel until such time as other parts of the new and renewable sector can pick up the slack. It's a very similar style of language. I forgot the specific term that was used by, I recall our former Prime Minister, when looking at gas, was playing a strategic role in the transition out of coal before we get to new and other kinds of new and renewables beyond fossil, but definitely looking at gas playing that strategic role. So even again, the sort of the language and the consideration of the role of gas seen as a less polluting form than, say, coal or oil. Very interesting to see, even in that regard, the policy considerations quite similar, but reflecting the basic dynamics of the energy and electricity sector in both countries. One of the interesting projects we did undertake, and this is always looking, projecting forward, this was specific for considerations of what energy costs would be in the Jakarta region from various sources of energy, looking through to 2050. This was an undertaking between a number of our unis. Monash was involved, ITB, probably IPB, as well as Monash collaborated to produce this Indonesian energy technology assessment. Around about 2017, I think it was completed in the list. So what's very interesting is to look at the eventual transformation of costs for various kinds of energy looking forward. Now, of course, when we're looking at things, for example, like coal, we're not looking at the externalities. So we're not looking at the broader cost of pollution, health impact on people nearby, people dying of asthma and assorted other diseases. So that's all passed off to the BPJS, as I would say in India, or Medicare in Australia. So the costs related to the uncosted elements of certain energy sources, particularly from coal. They're underestimating in many respects the actual cost of some of those sources of energy. We didn't actually at that stage include nuclear because it wasn't really seen as a serious option, but I'm very intrigued, again, picking up a point from Pak Yahya. When you're looking at the nuclear option, particularly if you're looking at it in terms of energy resilience and self-sufficiency and so forth, I would presume that Indonesia is not really looking at uranium source, but in fact thorium source. The country has 130 years worth of thorium as a waste product from mining tin on the bunker in Belitung Island. So actually there's a wonderful resource that's been quietly gathering over all of these years. And so I think that thorium's also got the benefit that it's not so complicated politically, internationally, and even perhaps technologically to establish. And it's also got shortest lives, half-lives and so forth. So it has a number of advantages specific for Indonesia as a country that's actually got quite good deposits, you would say, of thorium, whereas I'm not familiar yet that there is much uranium found. Australia is huge, hugely wealthy with uranium. But Indonesia, I think the thorium would be the one. But we didn't actually look at that source of energy at the time because in general, the nuclear option was seen more as a research kind of initiative, whether it was, with the research agencies, under BPPT or now BRIN, rather than in the energy sector or electricity generating sector as such. So that's a reason that really wasn't, it's down the bottom here, but it wasn't something we gave a huge amount of consideration to. So looking a little ahead, so another piece of research that we did was to look at a kind of what you might call a natural battery, which is pumped hydro. And we just looked specifically at the province of Bali and noted that there would be huge capacity without huge disruption to environmental integrity for use of pumped hydro in Bali as an option, given the costs and dynamics that people look at with other kinds of battery technology storage. But this actually was more than sufficient. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that particular piece of research. It was very interesting to consider that as an option for battery storage. And given the Bali-Java grid, it may be something that could be used to support, provide the security of supply, which is often the criticism, particularly of solar and wind. And another one that was also looked at quite early was the idea of a regional supergrid, which was really connecting Australia to particularly the Southeast Asia, for the ASEAN region. And interestingly, a few years later, the Sun Cable initiative was established, which was actually looking a little bit at that. And so that's a little bit of an interesting one to consider. But I think the dynamics have moved on from that initial thinking. Singapore, as you'd probably be aware, is now importing electricity from Laos. You might say, well, how is that possible? Well, Laos is a big provider of hydropower. And so Singapore's looking to, as it moves to decarbonize, and its major source of electricity is from gas. So they're looking to move to other sources. So they're actually seeking to buy clean energy from elsewhere around the region. Indonesia could be a source of support for solar. And I think, again, Fatih had touched on the issue of solar. One of the challenges, of course, is reaching economies of scale. And the problem is that the Chinese have the economies of scale and can basically dominate the entire world because most of the panels and so forth are produced at scale. Indonesia simply doesn't have that capacity, and so can't do it anywhere near that, unless it was able to, say, export that source, for example, to a place like Singapore, where that would encourage investments sufficient scale to companies in Indonesia, if they're in the knowledge that what they were produced would actually have a market for generating for use elsewhere. So there are ways that Indonesia could look to, in fact, look at something like feeding into a system such as in Singapore, and perhaps others will look to do something similar in the future, and actually use that to leverage or boost their own capacity domestically to a point where they will be able to compete with major providers around the world. So as I said, that original piece of research has now moved forward, and we're looking at other aspects. You're looking to see all of the work that we did, including some stuff up in North Sulawesi. Please take a look at that. So more generally, there's a number of other research-related areas where our research communities are working together. So the University of Technology in Sydney established what was called Renewable Accessible. I forgot what RACE stands for, but RACE for 2030. But it's all about affordable and clean energy. And it's a collaborative research centre, so it pulls a number of universities and businesses together. And so when this was being established, we were contacted through our headquarter office in Melbourne to say, do you think the Indonesian universities might be interested in participating? So we immediately contacted 3 of our key partner universities, so the Institute of Technology in Bandung, Agricultural University of Bogor, and Hasanuddin University, which have collaborated with us, and mentioned, look, you will have to invest, but this is a process. It's not actually run by us. It's not actually run by the AIC, but because they had trust in us, and we had built that relationship at an institutional level, it enabled, and they all joined, and they're still participating in that program. I think their particular components is working on PhD-related programs in their own universities in this space. But in addition, you've got universities else in other countries, plus big research, clean energy research centers, Aspen in Colorado, and some in Germany, and a number of other countries. So it's a major process, and Indonesian universities are now part of that network. And I think that's a tremendous thing when we're able to pull these things together. And so I think that's a kind of a practical application of collaboration in that area. So in addition to that, I would also make specific reference to notable programs that the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has invested in as part of its portfolio. Conexi in particular, it's a program that funds collaborative research between universities across both countries and research centres across both countries. So they'll have the usual kind of process, a bid out, everybody put together your partnerships between the two countries and following the agenda that's set for that time. So I'll just give references to two that may be of interest now. There's one on the bioeconomy, which is a collaboration between this program called Conexi in partnership with BRIN, the Indonesian Badan Research and Innovation Nasional. And the second one is Just Energy Transition with the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Technology, which is another set of programs that have also been launched. Some of that's partly funded by Indonesia's LPD, so the scholarship program. As for what's called PAIR, the Partnership for Australia-Indonesia Research, that's an Australia-Indonesia Centre program, and that's focused in Sulawesi, across Sulawesi, and that's equally funded between the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Australia and Indonesia's LPD, the research window of LPD. It's actually the first time Indonesia's kind of stepped up to give a 50-50 or any such partnership. So it's a great learning experience for both countries in partnering in this particular area. But the focus there will also include things on resilient communities, issues of climate change adaptation. And I'd also make reference to a new program called Kinetic. The Prime Minister, I forgot, it might have been here, I'm trying to remember, made reference to the Prime Minister, or maybe it was Paul actually. The Prime Minister organized his first visit to Indonesia a week after he was elected, with a couple of other ministers, Fayed Hussein and also Senator Wong. And he announced this big program for energy transition. Now that's now been formulated. They're now establishing programs under that. And the lovely Indonesian word that they're using to define this program is kinetic. So keep an eye on that one. And there's a lot that it's focused specifically on energy transition and some of the dynamics at a number of levels to work on that. So there's some important partnerships to look to there. I just mentioned Kinetic as the new program. It's in the process of being launched a number of windows in the year. So keep an eye on that one, but check out to see what opportunities there might be for your centre, your research centre or your university and so forth. I think that was it. So run through my presentation. Look, absolutely delighted again to have an opportunity to participate in this great discussion. Look forward to some solid questions. So thank you kindly.
Terima kasih Pak Kevin for the presentation. So what interests me more is like, what do you think? This is the leading question from me, Pak. Apologize if I jump in. So what do you think this green energy implementation and in terms of like the government connection with the local university in Indonesia, how the university can contribute to the existing agenda, or even if you can give us a example of the just like what Pak Paul mentioned, the involvement of university into the government activity or plan in Australia. What do you think, Pak?
So I think it occurs on a number of levels. There's what you might call the technical side, which is what you might call the engineering science of it, which is actually developing new technology. So is lithium the end of the game, or what is coming up next year? Is it hydrogen? Is it methane? Is it ammonia? Is it hydrogen peroxide? What's really working out as a good source, and where? So there's an energy mapping aspect as well. But I think there's also a real need to master the technology. Don't expect anyone to transfer the technology. I mean, I think that's a 1970s kind of notion, if I can be so rude. You've actually got to be involved. And actually, if you master the technology rather than inheriting it, I think you do a much better job in knowing where to take it forward for your own interest. And so partnerships between universities and research centres, I think really is the pathway to the future. A second set of issues, totally related, is actually dealing with the economics and the politics of all of these transitions. This is not easy stuff to do, particularly in fossil fuel rich nations, as both of ours are. And so there are always going to be complications there. I recall Brazil made a huge step forward in the 1970s during the first energy crisis in converting their sugar into ethanol. And that continues right till today. So they're a major user of that, and therefore they cut their dependence on the vicissitudes of global oil prices and availability and so forth. So I also know very well Central Queensland because I grew up very around cane fields. So you know, is sugar an opportunity? And Indonesia has also got some sugar, though it's obviously a natural importer of sugar these days, as it's been really since the Great Depression. So I think that's part of it. And also, so the economics, but also to understand the politics, and also locally to identify how do you get businesses to have a real interest in it. Not as greenwashing, but to actually say, actually, I understand that I've got to invest in this because if I want insurance for my business, it's going to cost me more. If I want this, this, and this, actually the costs are going up. If I want to get capital for this, if the costs are going up, or I'm not able to get capital for the next, you know, say coal-fired power plant because no one's going to provide capital for that, or if they do, it's going to be at outrageous interest rates, which makes the project less viable. Additional things, I guess, would be to work on things like the carbon trading system as one area that could be useful for identifying sources of capital or liberating some. Again, for both countries, well, from Australia's perspective, we had one briefly, but it didn't have real political support. And so it sort of collapsed soon after. So Indonesia has now launched one. The question is, does that really have broad cross-partisan support as a way forward for the country? And so really building those stakeholders with a commitment to that. So I think across the levels, I get related political forces legal. So it's actually getting good regulatory systems in place, and also to being able to look through regulatory systems to identify where there are block holes put in place when you're, for example, promoting new renewables, where there are actually block holes in the regulatory structure which actually go in the other direction. So all of that, I think, connects as well. So the three, it's got to be commercially viable. You know, no one can really avoid it. So how do you ensure that it's commercially viable? So that means what's the cost generated there? How is that viably and sustainably more affordable than traditional system? And then, of course, the technologies, which are changing all of the time. And so there's a real need to keep as close as you can to the front line on what the options are, so that your country isn't left behind. And collaborating with researchers and research communities in other places. And I think Australia does quite a good job in that area. It's a natural way to partner, and including when there are cooperative research centres that operate across, are founded in some university, brings in others, but then goes globally, is another wonderful way to amplify your researchers' reach and engagement with us.
Thank you, Pak Kevin, for the insight. Yeah, I do agree with you that all parties needs to collaborate across all sectors, and because this is what the big agenda is, the development of this country itself, and of course the country needs to work with other countries in order to develop, and this long-term plan should be run perfectly. So there is no other question for Pak Kevin. Well, actually there is one, but I'm putting it at the end of the session, Bapak. Just so hang on, Bapak Kevin. So next, I would like to call Ibu Happy Aprilia, PhD from ITK, Institute Teknologi Kalimantan. Ibu, thank you for participating in the session. The time is yours.
Thank you. I'll try to share my screen. And do you hear my voice clearly? Okay. Okay, and is it clear on the other side? Did it show right?
Clear, Ibu.
Okay, thank you, Pak Reza, and thank you everyone for coming to this discussion. I'm very honored to be invited to be a speaker, even though it is the last but not the least. And as Paul has mentioned before, that Indonesia and Australia possess considerable common ground in having strong coal, LNG, large renewable energy potentials, and also large off-grid area. And I do agree with Dr. Yahya that said that he's already explained about the energy trilemma in Indonesia, in which he saw the perspective from the top down. And also, I do agree again with them, with Kevin also, that said we need a strong policy and support from the government to implement a good collective renewable energy right now and for the future. And here, I am as the head of Integrated Laboratory in Institute Technology Kalimantan. I'm delighted to talk about the sustainable energy through the research and collaboration in the perspective of bottom up, since the strength of our institute is from the bottom to up, from the bottom to do the research, and then we can give the recommendation to the other parties. And again, this talk, in my session, I will talk about how ITK is empowering the potential of Kalimantan region in 2025 by leading an educational institution and doing research in natural resources technology from the upstream to the downstream. And I'm here on behalf of my colleagues in Research Institute of Institute Teknologi Kalimantan, especially for the research and community service. Okay, I will continue to the next slide. So, from the perspective of our institution, the location of ITK with the new capital city of Indonesia is very beneficial. We can see that Indonesian government is planning to move the capital city to Nusantara, in which it is located in East Kalimantan. And it will have a major impact on the region. And ITK is committed to supporting this project by providing education and research in the area of development and renewable energy. Since the goals for the relocation of the capital city is to achieve the net zero emission for the city in 2045, and then how we can optimize the quality of microclimate and how we can conserve the flora and fauna. And also, the most important thing is how do we treat the water and the environmental cycle can be better and better, not become a poorer. Here, the overview of East Kalimantan, we can see that even though the new capital city will be built or will be established into a very modern city, but because it is located in East Kalimantan, most of the region, the neighborhood is not really modern, as except maybe we can call Balikpapan as the modern city, Samarinda, and also Bontang as the industrial city. As you may can observe the population growth in this chart, in this table, the growth of population increase the society's activity actually, and it will the growth of population will affect to the society's expenditure. And from the data of East Kalimantan, we can see that the growth of net exports of the goods and service from 2019 to 2023 stable in a high value. So we can conclude that the most of the expense is derived from the net export of the goods and service, which is already said by Dr. Yaya that we have a very long distance transportation dilemma. And here is another overview from East Kalimantan side, which the society, most of them has major job sectors in mining, farming, construction, and industry. However, with the massive job sectors, such as in mining and farming, we can see from another data that the water treatment, waste recycling treatment is very low. And also a similar trend we can see from the education services and health and social activity. So what the society do in East Kalimantan is basically a business as usual without thinking about the future, or I mean, for the sustainable future, or without trying to be better in maybe the emission or something that support the climate change action. And here's another data that we can see, because most of the activities in East Kalimantan is from mining and also farming. The farming is good actually, but in the mining side and also the construction side, those activities will affect the environmental quality index, such as water quality index, air quality index, land quality index, and also the seawater quality. So around the neighborhood of the new capital city, the more modern the city, the poorer the environmental quality. But we can see if we take a look at Pasir, Kubar, the city, or like Kotim, Berau, it's still good because it is in a remote area. And we can see that the growth of population increase society's activity, hence increasing the potential of poor environmental quality. So we return to the ITK position in the location of IKN or New Capital Cities neighborhood. We're relatively close because we can reach the New Capital City in only 80 kilometers with private or public vehicle. And also ITK is very near with the seaport and also with the airport. So with the strategic location like that, and with the vision of ITK to become the empowerment, to empowering the potential of Kalimantan region in 2025, we are trying to give some recommendations, some solution to the problems, to the environmental problems that we found near ITK. We try to become we try to link and match the education with the industrial needs, the management, and also the concept of sustainable development with the support of 22 study programs in 3 faculties, and also with the support of research institute and community service and integrated laboratories. As you may see, the integrated laboratory, the unit that I lead, has so many modern facilities that can support the research or the cutting edge research of every lecturers, and not only lecturers, but also the students and also the external partner. So we can have the service for the external partner, in which if we have the collaboration with companies or with the other stakeholders, such as the government or any other partner, international partner. And this is the research center that are in ITK. We have like several research focus in which about the renewable energy, the sustainable infrastructure and maritime technology, the food innovation, and also the agricultural technology, And also we have the Smart Cities Center with the IoT-based research and also the green environment manufacturing industry. And we also take care about the food. We have the Halal Research Center that can support the food innovation. And this is aligned with the regulation of our region to develop a green and sustainable economy. So that's why the research center of ITK is already developing to support the green energy and sustainability. And this is some of the research that align with the concept of sustainable development, which is supported by almost every study program in ITK. I just take one example about the smart city research, which is we can have a like this, or maybe you can see here. From chemical engineering, we have sustainable resources, waste management, renewable energy, and most of the research are talking about how to use the fly ash of the coal power plant into a construction material which has better heaviness and better density and make it a better product. And we also have like the here we have the unmanned boat floating structure, marine renewable energy. This research is talk about how the boat can be operatedly without an operator with the power of solar power. And also the circular economy to support the circular economy of the smart enterprise, which is very common in Balikpapan, especially. And those research are not only done by the lecturers or the partner, but we also include our student to become the leader, to become the operator, to join the service for the society. Why? I talk about this because of the independent learning campus policy, the access of the student to experience the real thing and find the solution is real in Indonesia. And because of this policy, we enable the student collaboration with the lecturers' research. And also, we have also another enabler to the student collaboration, which is a Society of Renewable Energy, the student community to help our agenda. One of them are spread the awareness of using a renewable energy and also the energy transition. So why the student matters for the point of view that I deliver tonight? Because the problem of renewable energy transition or just energy transition is in the mind and in the mindset. By we integrating the student into our research, even though it's still a small research or maybe a medium level research, but because the student are the man behind the research, once they graduate from ITK, they can become someone that lead the company and someone that has already a creative mind or critical mind about the importance of renewable energy. So by the bottom, we can give a recommendation to the upper stakeholder, from the students to the good energy transition in the future. And this is one example that I the research that I manage with the students and also with other colleagues in ITK, we get funding from Pertamina Foundation, and also we got another funding to extend the prototype by Dikti to make a solar power acid mine water filtration system. Actually, because the mining is the most activities that can be found easily in East Kalimantan, most of the water or the lake are not the real lake. That's actually a post-mined lake that artificial. But the water quality is not good. The water quality is acid. But the society around that lake will directly use the water, the acid water, I mean, and it will affect the health of the society and also make some uneasiness on the skin. That's why we come with the idea of make a acid mine water filtration system with the help of my friend in environmental engineering and also students from both study program. We can build the system and implement it in the village. And here, once we implement the tools and the equipment in the village, we realized that, wow, it's so far from the Balikpapan, and it costs a lot of time to manage the plan. So that's why we increase or we improve when we improve the equipment with a remote control with IoT-based technology, and we also make a website monitoring for energy management system. And it's all done by the help of the students. And they are not only senior students, they also have, I mean, my team also consists of mid-level students. So it's a very interesting experience that I have to, I say to you guys. So yeah, so I want to stress that the collaboration, the research collaboration that done in ITK are not only to support the sustainable and renewable energy in the future, but also how we can make a next leader or next actor of renewable energy transition, in which they need to be built from the bottom, from the lower level. So for the conclusion, first of all, we want to strengthen in the collaboration. We want to have a collaborative networks for a sustainable future. We want to leverage the regional strength for holistic renewable solutions. And also we try to have a unified commitment to innovation and sustainability, including lecturers, students, and partnership for continuous improvement. Yeah, that's all I think. My time. Thank you for your attention, and Specta for the creator and the earth. So we will be beneficial for those creator and the earth. Yeah, that's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Hopefully we can have some discussion after this. I return the session to Pak Reza.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Ibu Happy. The only lovely ladies currently in the panelists. The rest is gentlemen. Ibu, I have one question from the audience.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, what is the biggest challenge that you and your student and also your colleague from ITK that you are facing?
Yeah. My biggest challenge to implement this community service actually how to educate the society. It is very easy to install the technology, right? And we can just like transfer the technology with some kind of open seminar with the villagers. But how to make it sustain, how to make them can operate it itself without afraid of troubling something. That's the hardest situation that we still try to find out, try to figure out, because mostly the research duration is kind of short. 1 year for research and community service is very short, right? Because because the distance of the plant and also the ITK is relatively far. It's about 30 kilometers. So we can just visit the village in our weekend. That's why the education or how we can make them better in the operation is kind of difficult. Yeah, I think that's the challenge that we face. Hopefully it answer your question, Pak Reza.
Yes, Ibu. Thank you very much for the explanation, Ibu. Pak Pierre, do you happen to have any question for Ibu Happy Aprilia?
Yes, thanks, Pak Reza. Ibu Happy, I see there's a question that's come in here. It says the plan for Nusantara IKN as a smart city located closely to potential regional national center for research, innovation, and sustainability is notionally ambitious. How are these kept resilient as revisions continue to occur in Nusantara's construction? Have you got some views on that?
Yeah. Because the policy in Nusantara is very dynamic. If we only set the target for Nusantara, it will be unuseful. But actually, when we done the research, like continuous improvement, even though it's not for Nusantara specifically, we can have it implemented into another region that may have the same condition with Nusantara. So I think, yeah, Nusantara is the ambitious goal of us, but we are not only looking at Nusantara. We find another opportunity too. Yeah, I think that's all, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Aprila. Could I just follow up there? One of the things that becomes really evident for me from looking at the presentations tonight is that there seems to be a lot of linkages between a region like Central Queensland in what Pak Paul has put forward and what I see is happening in East Kalimantan. And I'm just flagging from my perspective, maybe there is an opportunity for us to have a broader conversation, maybe between us later on, as to how we link those regions with one another. Because, I think the first time I went to Balikpapan, surely it was almost as if I was in Gladstone or Mackay in Central Queensland. And I bet if you go to there, you'll think you're in Balikpapan, just in Australia. So I think there's a bit of a conversation we can have about that.
Sure.
I'll just follow on. There's another question that's come up for Paul, and it says, Paul, what are the biggest challenges in achieving the 82% renewable electricity target by 2030 for Australia, in your opinion?
That's a really good question, and Pak Pia, just endorse your comment there to Ibu Aprilia. I would love to have a chat with ITK about joint opportunities to learn from each other. But Australia, one of the challenges is that Australia is really looking at a lot of solar energy. We have actually 58 million petajoules of solar radiation hits the Australian landmass each year. And so solar is our big renewable resource. We don't have geothermal in any that's really being commercialized. And we do have some wind, but a lot of it's solar. And the challenges with solar is obviously that it's quite the generation capacity is strong in the middle of the day. And so and often we see in the national electricity market, we see negative pricing and we see zero pricing. And we also see curtailment because there's nowhere for that solar energy to go. It has to be, there's no demand for it, which is why the pricing's so low. So in terms of developing up solar farms and solar generation facilities, the business case for an investor can be a little bit difficult because when they're generating the most energy, that's when the pricing is the lowest. So a big part of Australia meeting its renewable electricity targets will be around more storage. There's investments going into pumped hydro, and there's investments also going into grid scale and community and residential batteries as well. And there's a lot of work being done to see whether we can use the battery electric vehicles with vehicle to grid technology as actually a mobile battery fleet. And there's also things of looking at how we can shift energy demand to the center of the day. And that might even include things like producing green hydrogen as well. So there's a whole range of storage and, I guess, demand matching technologies and models that need to be done to be able to help meet the renewable electricity target.
Thank you very much, Paul. There's a question also here for Pak Kevin. Pak Kevin, I say, what are the biggest challenges in building geographical synergies between Australia and Indonesia for renewable energy? Sorry, Pak Kevin, just maybe unmute.
I think Paul actually noted that while we're both potential new and renewable powerhouses in many respects, we have slight differences. Actually, Indonesia is also not so strong on wind, both quite good on solar. But I think we're look further in the future, we can look at stuff like wave and ocean and other sort of stuff. So, and then of course there's biofuels. I mean, I suspect Indonesia's got a lot of strength in transforming from palm oil as its source, whereas perhaps Australia, it's more sugar. So there are different kinds of, also they'll produce different sorts of biofuels as well. That would be a couple of areas, but I think there's also, when you're looking at the whole, what I say, environment, there's also those aspects I mentioned before, the economic realities and what might be done to shift incentives, disincentives forward that might be useful exchanges between business communities, but also policymakers and actually community activists and even legislators, parliamentarians. So I think there's a number of useful areas where I think they can. There are levels of exchanges that can be built between the two. I'm really intrigued by the emergence of the Sun Cable process, which I touched on earlier. Now, at this stage, Indonesia just wants to be a transit zone rather than an uplift or download of the power that's being moved between. But one would hope that at some point there may be perceptions that in fact Indonesia should sell power into the grid, or if times are a bit tough, if the seasons aren't so great, you could actually download it. So I think there are lots of prospective options, but at this stage it's really just a transit zone for this heading up to the mainlands of Southeast Asia. So again, but what that actually includes, so the initial idea I think was to power the cables through, but then I think between the two prime investors had a different view on how that would be achieved. And so there's been a bit of a shake-up in the equity owners of that program, and I think those that have come out on top, I think that those who are proposing to keep the electricity moving through the cables rather than putting it on green energy powered by solar, converted into hydrogen, put on ships and sent off to Singapore or wherever they're going to send it. So again, the really interesting thing is almost building redundancy or options. I think that's really an important element when you're looking at all of these new and renewable. So the pumped hydro process, lithium or whatever it's going to be, battery storage arrangements and so forth. So it's really looking at all of the options and where there are potentials for collaboration in reaching economies of scale. That's, I think, where it gets really, really interesting for our two economies to be exploring opportunities.
Thank you very much, Pak Kevin. And it's an interesting question that's come up. What will be happening to existing power plants as we move forward, and they're being replaced by, let's say, hydrogen or nuclear power plants that may be developed in the future? What happens to this redundant almost infrastructure? Have you seen experiences in Australia and even maybe somewhere else in the world? Your comments, please. We'll first go to Pak Paul and then to Pak Kevin.
Yes, it's a great question, and I think that's part of The excitement really in places like central Queensland, where, as I mentioned, we've got the three largest coal-fired power stations in Queensland that actually exports a lot of electricity into the national electricity market. And what we're seeing around those zones is because they have the infrastructure in place, they often have access to water because you need water for cooling towers. You've got transmission, high voltage transmission infrastructure. You've got a skilled workforce, and you've got a whole range of other assets, including land in a buffer zone around that we're actually seeing people like Stanwell developing their future energy innovation and training hub. We're seeing CS Energy building their Kogan Creek clean energy hub because they don't have to create the infrastructure. They can use the existing grid infrastructure. They can transition the workforce. They can transition a whole range of other assets and zoning in those communities into new energy as well, particularly electricity. But then also co-located things like green hydrogen because you've got access to water and you've got access to green energy at scale through the grid. There's a lot of reutilization of existing infrastructure being done, which I think is really good because we don't want to see a lot of waste of infrastructure. We want to reutilize as much infrastructure as we can.
Thanks, Paul. Maybe from your side, Kevin, some thoughts? Anything?
Yeah, actually depends on where the power plant is located. If it's located in or close to a city, actually there's been some interesting things that have been done, I think not just in Australia, but other places. I think there's one in Brisbane, actually. They converted an old power plant actually into a museum cultural center. So there are some out-of-the-box ways of using or repurposing this infrastructure. You know, other things, would it be possible to use other kinds of power generation? And nuclear is probably really dedicated to alone. I don't think you can convert an old coal-fired power plant or gas turbine or whatever into a nuclear. I suspect there are a lot more complexities in building a nuclear power facility in terms of the various security and environmental and protection things that apply. So that one's probably a green fields, as it were, development wherever they might want to develop. But in other things, I mean, one thing that kind of strikes me as interesting, another one, if you don't want to convert them all into museums and restaurants, other things are industrial food development. So another interesting area, a number of old Rust Belt industrial zones in some places have actually been repurposed as agricultural centres using modern agriculture processes. You've seen these things with the pink lighting, multiple layers of production within a building. So very intense. You can get like 10 times the productivity of actually using a ground of land. So, and that's kind of like some sort of modern agriculture. So I think there are a number of opportunities. It requires a little creativity. And I think, as Paul mentioned also, you know, there are going to be the zoning issues. So, you know, Tataruang, the muscle at Tataruang for the local government and the provincial and national, as you want to try to repurpose it from one purpose to another. But that's a challenge that you'd have to work through as it comes through. But I really note, I think a point that Ian made earlier, and also brilliant, is actually the economic similarities between Central Queensland and East Kalimantan. And I think there's a lot of great potential policy dialogue between the peoples in both universities to look at, you know, next steps forward in the development of your region. So I think there's a natural partnership and fit, both on the technical side, but also, you know, the technological areas of research, but also on the social humanities side, the town planning and all of that sort of stuff. Really, really interesting. I'm actually going to be personally fascinated to see how it evolves over the next few years.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Yeah, and just made me think about some of the stuff that I've seen before. Some of these discarded infrastructure even becomes places for artwork. Back in the country where I come from in South Africa, I've seen that they completely taken over by artists and just make them into huge artist pieces in the community, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of options once you really put your mind to it and see what the opportunities are around that. Well, thank you very much for that input. Pak Reza, I'll hand back to you because I think the list of questions on my side have been exhausted. So I'll hand back to you and thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Pierre. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, seems like Pak Pierre already start the Q&A session. It's supposed to be introduced by the MC. But anyway, the next question, I'll be moderating for Pak Yahya and Ibu Aprilia. First question for Pak Yahya. But we received a lot of questions for all participants, so we just need to sort it out first. The first question for Pak Yahya: is there any common chain of common line between Bappenas and the utility company to adjust their asset to be aligned with the long-term plan?
Okay, thank you, Pak Reza. As we know that National Electricity Company is the one state company who has you know that monopolies also monopolies, yeah, monopolies authority and then monopolies authority, because you know that just only state electricity company PLN only selling to the public. You know that selling to the public, that the monopoly of the PLN, and the monopolies, because you know that the so many independent power plant. I mean that the IPP power plant owned by the private, you know that must sell electricity to the PLN. Yeah. That monopolies. That's why you know that PLN could, you know that could scrutinize to choose the IPP power plant in line with the long-term planning in terms of the energy transition. So maybe right now the PT PLN not you know that not accept you know that the IPP coming from the fossil fuel. Yeah, the accept just only coming from the renewable energy uh, or cleaner energy, for example, like natural gas power plant, wind power plant, solar power plant, and also geothermal power plant, or hydro power plant, something like that. So that's our rule, yeah, in the long-term development plan, because our target in the long-term development plan is very ambitious, very ambitious. 70% the mix energy primaire coming from the renewable energy, and we are focusing on utilization of the solar PV. So beside the long-term development plan, we are also having what we call the national energy utilization planning, or RUEN. So also you know attach also the roadmap of the utilization of the solar PV, because the solar PV is cheapest compared to the other sources. You know that if without the energy storage system, for example, like we have the solar power plant in lake of nearby the Jatiluhur Dam, that are built by Uni Emirat Arab company with the a joint venture with the PT PLN. built 125 megawatt solar power plant. So the pricing just only 4.5 cent per kilowatt. So 5 cent per kilowatt compared to the coal-fired power plant 6 cent per kilowatt hours. So that's why you know that the solar power plant cheapest if without the energy solar system. So for the long term, we can there are some strategies. There are some strategies to utilize the solar power plant. The first one is replacing diesel power plant in the remote areas or in undeveloped areas in Indonesia. And then the second, solar PV roof in cities. So we are introducing every cities, every commercial building, housing, or government building must use, solar PV rooftop. And then also solar PV in large scale using lake, like I mentioned before, and also using the water basin, because you know that the constraint of the PV because of using a huge land. 1 megawatt need almost 1 hectare the land. So that's why this is a very obstacle to build the solar power plant. And solar power plant also in large scale will be built in using the beach or sea that has a low wave. Now, for example, like in Riau Islands, Kepulauan Riau, the Capri province, their location is very feasible to construct the solar power plant in the large scale. And also solar PV using abundant mining in Kalimantan and in South Sumatra. So many lot land as abundant mining can be used as the PV solar. So you know that because very enthusiastic and optimistic using energy transition, we will be dominantly using the solar power plant. Yeah, that's
Thank you, Bapak.
my question, Pak Reza.
Thank you, Bapak. Second question, Pak. This is a
Yep.
good question. Since you're mentioning in your presentation about the nuclear power plants that Indonesia will be implementing from 2030 up to 2040. So the question is, who is the major investor for this nuclear power plants arrangement, and how to determine the electricity tariff with nuclear resources? How is the nuclear case study in Indonesia going on 2030 onward?
You know that if the country starting to construct the nuclear power plant, there should meet, the International Energy Atom Organization. So that's why we need 7 until 10 years for the preparation of nuclear power plant. The current government is supporting to build the nuclear power plant because right now the government prepare to make some regulation to establish the institutional setting. For example, actually, you know, that actually already exists, like Batan, Bapepam, Bapeten, Batan, and the other institution. It will be, you know, involved in setting the regulation, institutional setting, and so on. So in the first step of the long-term development, just only preparing institution and the regulation for the nuclear power plant. And the second stage, there will be the pilot project of nuclear power plant using the technology of small modular reactor, for example. Ya, Pak Reza.
Yep. Pak, you receive a lot of question, Pak. So the third question is what this is still related with the nuclear energy. The use of nuclear energy is closely associated with force majeure events, and their extremely negative consequences. Is Indonesia fully ready for this? And how and what your perspective? I mean, like what is the things that we really need to prepare aside from the infrastructure and also and other things?
Yes, you know that the National Research and Innovation Agency, BRIN, right now is preparing for the some studies about the nuclear power plant, including the location. Where is the location of power plant will be located. Yeah, you know that actually we already you know that some study because some studies should be not far from Java Island. Yeah, you know, but not built in the southern of Java Island, but in the northern Java Island because lack of the earthquake, and then also the second option will be built in the Belitung. Yeah, you know the Belitung because the community of the Belitung support when the first nuclear power plant built in this area, and then not expensive to integrate it with the grid Sumatra Java. So if a power plant built in the Belitung, so the electricity could supply to the Sumatra area because the next 5 years until 20 years will be built some industrial zone in Sumatra, a long way from the Aceh to the Lampung, and then integrated with the Java Island. So when the nuclear power plant built in the Belitung is very feasible. And also the third option built in the Pontianak, West Kalimantan, because nearby the source of radioactive material in there, and then the community of the West Kalimantan also accept if the first nuclear power plant built in this area, and in our long-term integrated electricity grid also will be connected between Kalimantan and Java Island. Yeah, because the source of energy demand, electricity demand, located in Java Island. So that's why replacing coal-fired plant by the nuclear power plant is appropriate, yeah, because nuclear power plant is very clean, not producing emission. And then the advantage using the nuclear power plant also the nuclear power plant could be the base load electricity power as the base load. It means compared to the renewable intermittent electricity should be using the energy storage system and also nuclear power plant not having constraint about the land like solar PV. So that's why the government certainly determined will build the nuclear power plant 2032 or 2033 in our long-term development plan. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive
Yeah.
presentation. So to be fair, Bapak, before I continue the question to you, I would like to give the opportunity for Ibu Aprilia to answer the question that addressed to her.
Okay. What is the question, Pak Reza?
Apologize, my bad. I forgot to unmute. The first question, Ibu, how does Indonesia compare to other countries in terms of renewable energy research and innovation, according to your perspective?
In my perspective, the actually Indonesia, how we are mastering the technology is not too far from the other countries actually. However, because the downstream of the industry is not very supportive for us, we have a lack of opportunity to develop our own products. That's the biggest obstacle actually for us as a researcher to keep up with the innovation that go along with the world, actually like that. Maybe it is out of the topics, but for having a good renewable energy technology, one of them may be the solar panel, right? And it is already stated by Mr. Yahya that we want to build our own solar panel because right now the center of the production is in China, in the mainland of China, because they can make good products with the cheapest price. And not only that, actually, not the biggest solar panel product, but also in terms of a very small chip like semiconductor, we have very difficulties to build that since we don't have any semiconductor factory. That right now the center or the biggest company is in the Germany, right? And we don't have the technology. That's the challenge for us to have some innovation actually. But if we are having an opportunity to maybe go to the outside, maybe go to Australia, go to the Germany, become a postdoctoral student, or maybe having a visiting research or something else, I think we have an opportunity to be as good as the other researchers in the world for having a good innovation. Yeah, our idea is big. However, we have technology difficulties. Yeah, I think that's the answer, Pak Reza.
Thank you, Ibu. Comes to the next question. With the new elected president, the new government team, well, how do you see in terms of research funding? Is it going to be extra more, or do you think it will be stagnant? And how do you think ITK can also leverage the opportunity to search for more research funding?
Yeah, I think to answer that, even though the policy is changing, especially for the new elected president. However, because ITK is still a developing institute, developing campus, we still have a relatively not too high research grant. That's why I think we are used to that kind of situation. But creatively thinking, we are strengthening our power or our opportunity in the international collaboration, because especially because of our location near the IKN, the new capital city, most of the international partner come to visit ITK first before they are going to new capital city. That's why we get some grant from JICA to add more facility in the laboratory, and also we got grant from Australia, but we need to submit the proposal, right? Because me and other colleague have been granted with a direct aid program by Australian government, but in the Makassar General Consulate General, yeah. So we try to seek many opportunities for that. Yeah. Hopefully we can have a collaboration with Mr. Kevin, Mr. Pierre, and also Mr. Paul after this. Thank you.
Thank you Ibu for the explanation. So before we continue to the third question, sebelum kita lanjut ke pertanyaan ketiga Ibu, saya mau minta maaf ke semua penonton, to all audience and also to all panelists. We won't be able to read each one by one question that been put in the Q&A box. Kita tidak bisa jawab semuanya, jadi kita limit pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Tapi kita dengan senang hati akan membahasnya di lain waktu. So we cannot answer all the question that's being put it in the Q&A box. We sort it first, but in the future, if we have the opportunity to reconduct this kind of session, more than happy to address the answer. So the third question, Ibu.
Yeah.
How can university or ITK in this place better prepare students to contribute to the renewable energy sector, both in research and industry?
I see. So for that question, we already put it into the curriculum, because there is a how to say that, the independent campus learning, in which the student have the opportunity to work outside the campus, but then the students can get some kind of credits for that activity. So by that we can how to say, achieve the goal of the competence that we want, that we plan to be in the students. Yeah, because of that policy inside ITK, not only in research but also in the class, we also make a project-based learning in our courses, so that most of the class will not only lectures, but they need to have to do some small projects about maybe the programming, maybe the IoT, the small project. But at the end of the semester, they need to present it. Now, by that, we try to put small competence in every courses. And if they are ready to do some outside campus activity, maybe in the 7th semester or 6th semester, or maybe in the 8th semester, they can go to the internship, but already have many competency that they need to be working good in the industry. Yeah, I hope it answer your question.
Thank you, Ibu. Now, more extra question for Pak Yahya. I hope this is okay with you, Pak.
Okay.
So the question is coming from Bapak Rudi, Bapak Rudi Sunardi. His question is, Indonesia has Cirata PLTS, which is one of the largest PLTS in Southeast Asia, with a capacity of 192 megawatt peak. Is this a potential renewable energy and will be developed compared to wind or nuclear energy in Indonesia?
Thank you, Pa Reza. So because our institution, Bappenas, is a part of the what we call that National Energy Council. Then, because our ministers also the member of National Energy Council. So we already make models of the simulation until 2060 because we already committed, yeah, to make net zero emission in 2060 when we are using that renewable energy. It will be that lack of in 2045 until 2050. So that's why we will using some energy sources, yeah, energy sources like a nuclear power plant and also hydrogen power plant. Uh, 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 to fulfill the lack of gap between the energy demand and the energy supply. Renewable energy will be dominantly coming from solar PV. So right now, the largest in Cirata solar power plant, already I mentioned before, yeah, and then the pricing is very low. That the maybe in the next 5 years also we have planning to build the largest solar power plant in Kepulauan Riau. That it could be also share the supply of renewable energy to Singapore. Yeah. Beside that, supply renewable energy along with the industrial zone in Sumatra. So because that the global requirement need that what we call the green product. So the industrial zone should be produce the green product. It means that must be use renewable energy. So that's our planning. And also, Paul, about the green hydrogen. So we also already included in our long-term development plan green hydrogen and green ammonia. Yeah, green hydrogen and green ammonia. In terms of the will be utilization on the shipping. Because electricity could not be used as the shipping, just only for the bus and vehicle, light vehicle, buses. But for the shipping, what the fuel could be replaced the solar. Biosolar, it could not be, because still producing the emission, but the green hydrogen could be used in the shipping, because Indonesia is archipelagus countries. So many, traffic of the big ship, and then we already right now is preparing the route map hydrogen as the fuel for the shipping, and then we will build some station along Sumatra, North Java, until in the east is the Kalimantan. That because between Kalimantan and Celebes, the shipping through to the Japan, on Korea or Taiwan or Tiongkok and something like that. So we will build some station for the hydrogen station for the shipping. We are preparing to do that, yeah, in our planning.
Of course, it will be also supported by the government new regulation and such, ya Bapak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because right now also maybe next month will be issued some law about the new and renewable energy that will be based that all our action based on our law, the new law will be issued maybe next month because already almost done.
thank you, Bapak, for the explanation and the answer. So the next question is to all panelists. One question is, how can research finding be better translated into government policies and industry practices to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy? Who would like to answer first? Aprilia, maybe?
Okay, Pak Reza, in my opinion about that, the link and match between industry and university should be done as soon as possible in Indonesia, because the linkage of the industrial needs to the university is still not done, not developed yet. Because I've experienced the research in Taiwan, and because I'm pursuing my PhD in Taiwan, the the professor will always get the grant from the industry to solve the problem that they need. And that's not only a mono years. I mean, it not only annual grant, but it will be a long-term grant. So that kind of situation is not really happening in Indonesia, right? That's why I hope in the future, if the policy from the stakeholders can be very directed to the industrial that you need to meet this kind of target, then the industry will try to meet the target, right? But if they cannot find any solution, and they will have to contact the university, as we have the research, we have the facilities. So hopefully in the future we can have that kind of link and match between industry and in universities. Yeah, that's my question. I
Thank you,
return to
Ibu.
you. Thank you.
I give the opportunity to Pak Paul to answer.
Thanks, Pak Rosa. I think it really comes down to partnerships and working really embedded together over that long term. So rather than a series of project funds that people have to compete for, it's actually these long-term arrangements. We have a lot of our research students are actually working in industry, and we're working, and the challenges that they're solving are working with the university and our university expertise and facilities, but also their employer. And it'd be good to see more of that happening with government as well, where you've actually got this sort of embedded framework. I think also regional universities, and I suspect ITK is similar, in that it would be good to see governments potentially support the capacity and capability building in the regions, so you actually have more regional voices and regional perspectives in the capability in the policy making as well, because regions have people on the ground who actually live and see the results of bad policy as well as good policy, and actually can really make a big input. But building up their education and training, building up the capacity to be able to contribute. It's something that we work very closely with our industry partners and government partners on, to sort of say we're not necessarily the best partner now, but if you can invest in our capability and capacity, you'll help strengthen us as a partner, and that will actually help you in the longer term. So building some of those partnerships, I think, is really important.
Thank you, Pak Paul. I would like to hear from Pak Kevin, also Pak Yahya after that. Your perspective from the government side and the policymaker side, also in the industry, of course.
I would suggest 3 steps to having an impact. I mean, what you're talking about is impact of research. So the first thing is research should be interdisciplinary if you're looking at having an impact. So just focusing on one discipline makes it a little harder to have an impact across. So I've spoken a couple of times about the technological together with the economic, the political, and the legal. So you need to bring disciplines together for a problem. First issue. Also, stakeholder engagement on this needs to start very early. So the traditional thing is call for proposal, boffins get together, come up with a proposal, off you go, lovely paper produced, off to Science and Nature or whatever. You have to extend the cycle of research, go further as it were upstream, bring people or agencies, institutions, local government, national government, business and community groups together from the beginning to actually get them to be informed. Then have them as an ongoing consultant. They don't mess around with the actual research. You're not corrupting that process. But to have an input to say, why are we doing this? Nobody cares. Or why aren't you doing more on this? So it can help to frame and guide the result. The outcome of that, of course, is people who've got a vested interest and an understanding of what you've been doing. So the third element is to translate the research work into language which makes sense to policymakers. Policymakers don't need to know 50 pages of methodology and all that sort of stuff. They need to understand, well, why am I as a governor or as a minister or as a director general or as a whatever, Bupati or a sector, why do I need to be reading this? Why is this important? So that's really important, and to translate that into a language that's relevant and a logical flow that's relevant for policymakers. And secondly, using your stakeholder group, you'll have community groups there with an interest. So, for example, you're doing something as we've done, maybe on accessibility to infrastructure. The local Bupati isn't really up to it, but you've got sitting on there a disability activist group. Well, somebody's going to say, Bupati, why aren't you getting involved in this? The one next door, his couple parties getting involved, or the next one, she's getting involved. What's wrong here? So actually, you start to build a demand for your research outputs. So I think those would be the three elements that I think give you a better chance of ensuring that the work undertaken by researchers is able to actually have an impact on the ground.
Thank you, Pak Kevin. Pak Yahya, your point of view?
Okay, thank you. Concerning about research funding, Indonesia will be using what we call the pentahelic system. So involving the government, universities, industry, and the community. For example, like ICEREC, Indonesia, Indonesian Solar Energy Research Center, ICEREC. ICEREC was built on the basis of strategic cooperation between various well-known research institutions and universities in Indonesia, such as Bandung Institute of Technology, University of Indonesia. Maybe will be expand, that Bu Aprilia also could be, join with the ICEREC, yeah, and also National Research Agency BRIN, that the Indonesian research institution also collaborated with the Solar Energy Research Institute of Singapore. This collaboration aimed to develop innovative photovoltaic technology from solar cell to modular system that can be widely applied in various industry. So that we'll be using what we call the pentahelic scheme. That's all, Pak Reza.
Thank you, Bapak. Thank you to all panelists for the great answer. Again, apologize Bapak Ibu, kami tidak bisa membacakan semua pertanyaannya dan ada juga beberapa pertanyaan yang memang related dengan jawaban-jawaban dari para panelis. Apologize, we won't be able to answer all question because some and also some question is also related to the question that have been asked to the panelists. So, for example, the question from Barispa and then Barisha, this is related to the policy that are being implemented for the Indonesia government, including the economy policy and also the energy policy that Pak Yahya already mentioned. two question, I think this is one from Pak Saripudin UPI and Ibu Arianti from Satya Wacana Christian University. More than happy to connect you guys to the panelists and also with Pak Paul and even with Ibu Happy Aprilia in order to develop a working collaboration for both institutions. Yep. So before we end the session tonight, I would like to also remind all the participants to please fill in the questionnaire. This is part of our reflection, and hopefully we can also bring more effective and more positive event in the future. And again, thank you very much for all panelists for delivering the presentation. It's great to have you here. All the audience that having for a question, and also Professor Pierre Fillion for moderating the session as well. I giving this opportunity back to Bella as the MC.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Reza. Okay, to all of you, before we end this event, I would like to thank all of our panelists and attendees for making this event a success. Your participation and engagement are crucial to advancing the renewable energy movement. So, to close the evening, we will conduct a photo session. So, please, to everyone, open your camera and then set the Zoom background that has been shared on the chat box. And to the theme that assigned, please kindly capture the picture and I will take a lead, okay? I will count, start from now. 1, show your lovely face. 1, 2, okay, 3. Okay, and then the second one with okay, ready, team? Okay, okay, I'll count. Start to count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our event for today. Thank you for your time and commitment to renewable energy. And have wonderful evening. And we hope to see you again in future events. And don't forget to connect us with our in social media at our Instagram or LinkedIn. Once again, thank you and see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Terima kasih semua,
Thank
Terima
Bapak
you. Selamat
Ibu.
kasih.
malam.
Thank you.
Selamat malam, Pak
Selamat
Paul.
malam.
Thank you, everyone.
Dari Aceh, from Aceh.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Said.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.